episode 12. I'm Roger Curlin. This is Miguel Miranda. We're going to be talking about customer experience for this episode, and it's a two-parter. So after this one, there'll be a second episode talking about it. So really, Miguel, I feel like there's four main categories to focus on for the customer experience. Service is clearly the big one, and that's what we'll talk about right now. The next episode, we'll talk about food, we'll talk about ambiance, and we'll talk about what I call surprises and how that adds to the customer experience. But for this one, this is a big battle in hospitality now for customer traffic. Not only because the number of restaurants there are out there, but the significantly diminished dining out traffic right now. And we don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know how much it's going to build. So being able to focus on that customer experience and wow somebody through those four categories is so important. So I know you talk about the three touch points with service, serving the customer, the hello, the exchange, the goodbye. So talk to us a little bit about the hello and the importance of that and what that means for a customer.
Right, and let me preface this a little bit with saying, yes, we're talking now in respects to a thriving in a post-COVID economy, but what we're going to talk about today is, we could have spoken about 2 months ago.
Yes.
It's just more heightened right now, as you laid it out to be, because situation we're in, obviously economically, we got to recover. And right now, honestly, my opinion is all those lower guests that maybe were loyal to other restaurants in the past are up for grabs. This is pretty much a situation where you've got free agents from a guest point of view that they want to see right now is who's going to deliver. And so it always starts with me with the hello,
right?
The introduction to my place, whether it's a phone call, whether it's the website,
right.
or the physical walking in valet, or the host.
Right.
And traditionally, that is the area most restaurateurs they put the most inexperienced, least trained staff member.
True.
It's someone that like, oh, it's your first time you've ever worked in a restaurant. You'd be an amazing host. We'll put you up front. Here's the floor chart, go seat people.
Right.
And with very little care, thinking, what is that interaction going to happen? What is it going to look like?
Right.
Right now, it's even more perilous, in my opinion, is because the fact that when I walk in, I'm making not only a decision as a guest as to, hey, what kind of experience it's going to be, is right now I'm looking, how safe is this experience going to be? What am I looking for? So this host, this person answering the phone call, whether I'm calling to find out if you're open, I want to hear, what kind of hygiene things you're going to be doing.
Sure.
I.e., for instance, yes, we're open, we have limited seating, or there's only patio, or we've sanitized the entire restaurant, which I heard a few times this past week. These are the things that you got to train someone, and that's part of the hello. This is you coming into my environment, you walk into my home. One example I always tell people is that if you throw a party at your house, and I would do this in an interview process, asking for a host. If you threw a party at your house and then I was invited, and obviously I just met you, so I probably don't know many of your friends, what would you do? And that to me was an answer is, are you really good at giving a great hello? Would you meet me at the door? Would you take my coat or offer me a drink? Would you introduce me to people during that party? Maybe connect me with someone that may have similar interests?
Right.
That's what a host does. I think as a restaurant, we do the exact same thing, whether you're full service or even quick serve. Somebody walks through your door, if you don't have a doorbell chiming off and letting somebody know that you just walked into my environment, I can see what's happening, especially now in the age of multitasking, where maybe that cashier is doing some prep work.
Right.
Knowing someone just walked in, please say hello to them.
Right. The other thing I want to take a point to, and we've made emphasis throughout our episodes about technology. So if the phone is a weakness at a particular restaurant, and I've seen the whole gamut where the phone just rings and rings and rings, and everyone, it's like it's covered with poison ivy. I've got other ones where, who knows who's picking up and the level of intelligence with the call that they're going to have to field and where they get it to. There is such great automation out there now that can funnel a caller to that restaurant we know, I don't know, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 are just calling for the hours and to see, are you open, location. You can get rid of that in the opening and then have it filtered to takeout, delivery, whatever. So there's some great automation out there. I'm a big believer in that. In good automation, customers are used to that now.
Yeah, and even the people that would say, well, I hate getting a robot answering for me. Well, tell you what, they'll take a robot over no answer.
Yes.
And so
Right.
that is the kiss of death of just that ever ringing phone.
Right.
And sometimes it's not because people don't want to; it's just they're busy. Especially again with small staff, it's hard to get to it.
As long as you don't create a loop on that where you hit a button and don't create loops. As long as you don't, and it's a really simple. To me, it's a simple menu for automation. So that's something that can really help out and funnel everyone to the right. Back to your point about the greeting at the front door. You really only have three options there. Again, you've got a host stand, seat yourself, or you've got counter service, right? Well, each three of those has a completely different approach pre, post COVID now. So the seat yourself, again, I'm not a huge fan if there's not really great directions for what that means. I did think of a suggestion, perhaps a laminated piece of paper that says something to the tune of, we clean all our tables between guest visits. Welcome, your server will be here with you shortly. That's laminated, it's on the tables they can sit at. Right. You go, you see that, wow, that's awesome. The server comes, they take it up and they get into the service. So there may be ways to do that. The host stand is a really powerful position right now. Should have your rock star there that knows everything. The other thing that we've talked about in previous episodes, those guests that are coming in are either new, returning, or it's a mixed set of customers coming in. Right. Find that out. That's valuable information to how you're going to bring those guests back. So you've got to be asking that. You've got to be tracking that. I know, Miguel, we emphasize that a lot.
And whatever the numbers were before, you could say, well, this is what typically we had before, which is fine. That's good data to have. But you really want, we're in the new world. Right. And so are those guests coming back? And you really need to understand is what's driving your guest traffic, because it may not be the same situation you had in the past. Right.
And I feel like it's really got to be scripted right now because it's a new habit that's forming. So whoever's running that either that counter, that host, that there has to be a script that allows for flexibility but also gets the key points in. I feel a great host can really kick that night off with an A+. Create comfort, create safety, create a relaxed dining experience from the beginning. So very, very critical. In the ones that I saw doing a great job with it, kind of stuck out when I took the tour during the weekend on the weekend. Counter service, they're the host, they're the server, they're the food delivery person, they're doing everything. So even more critical to have that person.
One thing I add on the counter service, and actually we encountered this, no pun intended, this past week at one of our clients' restaurants, which is a quick serve. And we've been open for the whole entire time, but I was actually there for a meeting with the owners. We're kind of reviewing what the next month is going to look like. And we watched someone right outside their door look at the door and try to read all the signs we had on the door to really understand is were they allowed to walk in or not.
Right.
And although we had curbside pickup and all the signs out there, and we've been open for weeks, it hit me, we didn't really look at it from a guest point of view, what our doors were saying. Again, this is a counter place where there's not to be a host there. So we stood back out, after the guests left, we stood back outside and we recognized we had way too many signs. Yeah. We actually had some signs that were right beginning, they were old from middle of March, but things had updated. And so we took these signs off, we started clearing things out, and we actually put a new sign that says, welcome, come on in. But then we also had the rest of it about, obviously what the sheriff's department put out there and things like that. And I don't know if it's going to 100% take care of that situation, but I think a lot of it is just looking back and saying, from a guest point of view, are we giving mixed messages? Sure. Because we don't always hear the same news source. And so they could be hearing something saying, hey, you're not allowed to walk in, or you shouldn't be inside, or what is or isn't allowable. And there's a lot of misinformation out there in respects to what a guest is allowed to go do. And so you want to make sure we're being clear, right. And don't let what's happened for the last few weeks dull you into a sense that you've communicated everything you have to communicate to the guests.
Yeah, there's so much information. And then so we've got the hello. The next part, it's the deep part, the long part, the complex part is the exchange. So in a future episode, we're going to break down all the little tiny pieces. But what we wanted to do here was really just give a few key takeaways about that exchange. I'm going to just do a couple, Miguel, and then I'll feed it over to you. I always say staff must think of themselves as entrepreneurs. They're given the keys to a business, and by the way, they haven't paid anything. It's a free business. Here's the keys, start your business. the guests at the table are their customers. They must view themselves as an entrepreneur, and those guests are their customers. If you can get that mindset built in, there's a lot of great things that blossom from that. So that's kind of my intro to the exchange process. And Miguel, give some of your thoughts as to what you think is important.
Yeah, I mean, I think it always goes back to is if you have people that are trained to understand what is the mission of that organization. So let's say we're a quick serve concept.
Right.
So we're looking for speed, but we're also looking for clarity of what what's available for sale,
right,
and also what goes well with others, right? And so, are they trained for that? Are they trained to quickly convey that information and hopefully get you to make a decision?
Right.
In the same time, we're trying to move the line along.
Right.
We had a cashier once that she was phenomenal, great service. But man, she held up a line to the point that everyone behind, if you were in line behind you would be upset because it's taking too long. And so understanding what the business is about versus a fine dining environment where it's really more about the experience. And so training them to understand what is the mission, what kind of ambiance we're trying to create is really critical. Next is, do they, like you said, do they see themselves as a business? And so for more than anything else, do they understand the math behind how they make their money? I definitely, when I train staff, I don't train them to look at money in respects to, hey, I'm going to try to sell you a bottle of wine and maybe you don't drink and I'm going to maybe push you in a certain way.
Right.
But I do want them to understand the math behind of how many guests are taken care of, what is the value of selling more appetizers and more desserts, or maybe if it's a quick serve, upselling, to a drink or a larger size. That may make sense. That there's money related to them to be able to either hopefully get a raise down the road, but I'm seeing now more and more quick serve that's, especially with the new tablets where you can pay, is prompting you, do you want to give a tip? With some of the clients we work with, most cashiers average an additional $2 to $4 an hour in tips.
Yep.
So that's a huge pay bump for them.
Sure.
And so where does that tips come from? Well, the level of service I give, which means, and usually it's a function of total sales, which means the higher check average. Hey, do you want guacamole on that burrito? Ups the amount of money. So understanding the math behind is really important. And
I want to pause you for 1 second to go back to and underline explaining the why behind the actions and the training and is so, I think is so critical. I mean, we come down to, as a single-digit profit business, efficient and effective. Well, you create efficient and effective really by training, role play, and then fine-tuning what's going on. And so that's so critical, I feel, especially in this era now, because we have to be at our most efficient and most effective right now. I'm also a fan of staff name tags or table tents or something so that there's a knowledge between and a connection between that table and that server.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big one, rely only on a name tag, but tell you what, nowadays, especially when you can't get close to people sometimes, in remembering what they said, it's good to have that information. Plus, it's a good way to get feedback later on through whether it's through Yelp or your own internal feedback mechanisms. They know, hey, who took care of you? It was Roger, because I saw it. It was reinforced by the fact that I read his name tag.
Yeah. So the COVID hat is something where we have to look at that service and where is it affecting my ability to communicate with you and give you good service. I'm wearing a mask now as a staff. I probably have to slow down a little bit. I probably have to enunciate a little bit better. I probably have to be a little bit louder. I probably have to be more comfortable with what did you say as opposed to normal service, right? So things like that are very important to train staff on and get them ready under this. I also have seen interactions between customers and staff where they'll be like, oh, you don't have to wear the mask with me, or why are you wearing the mask? There's baiting that's going on from customers. You got to tell your staff how to respond to that, right? We're wearing our masks for the safety of each other and the customers. And there's no reason to get in soliloquies over that, but it's really important to give them the scripts and the answers they have, because it was all over the place when it comes to the customers dining.
Well, one thing I'll say, and we've talked about it in the past, is role play. Giving the scripts to the employees or telling them what they should be saying is not sufficient.
Correct.
You need to put them under pressure. You need to call on them and say immediately, hey, how would you handle this?
Right.
And see how they respond. Because in the situation, by they're being asked something by a customer and they haven't thought back through where they're going to refer back to their own personal feelings.
Right.
And again, we've talked about this, off camera. There's a lot of people thinking different of the situation from one spectrum to the next, and what we don't want happening is employees giving their own personal interpretations and feelings about what's happening, fully on company time. They need to represent the company stand of what they believe, and so role play is really important, both on timing as well as right speech patterns, as well as right terminology, and not really get involved. And I think that you may have told me that some people got a little political in their conversations with you, which again, it's a no-no in this world right now.
No politics, no religion. The other thing, menus right now, in my going out, I found there were slimmer menus. They were more refined in some places. So in discussing the menu and what may or may not be available, staff needs to be prepared to do that. How the menu is given, how the menu is displayed. A lot of places are going digital now, or one-use menus, or there's a variety of ways, or digitally on the customer's phone. So that's a new policy and a new practice. You want to make sure that it's from a ownership GM position. You've done that with the customer in mind, but then the staff has to be able to explain it, to work with that. So that's going to be really important. And caddies are gone from the tables now. Like you said, it's a really stripped down dining experience when you get to a table now. It feels a little surreal, but that's with us for a while. So how does that look when I need ketchup? Normally it's on the table. Now I've got to ask for a side. Staff needs to be proactive now. Are there any condiments that you would like with, would you like it on? Would you like it on the side? All of that stuff has to go into that service to provide that customer experience where we have our video expert here had a great dining experience and told us about it and told others about it because it was A+. So that's the effect that you want to go for, is that word of mouth coming out of this. So the goodbye. I am a big fan of a powerful strategy for how you say goodbye to a guest. What are some of your thoughts on that, Miguel?
Well, I've always said that the ultimate defect in a restaurant business is not someone having a bad experience. It's someone having a bad experience and leaving the restaurants without you finding out about it. And so we're human beings. Things are going to go wrong. Things are not going to be 100% perfect. And yes, right now I think most of our guests are giving a little bit of the doubt, both on food quality and even overall service speed and quality, because they're getting back into it. I think that's going to last about a week. Next week, they're back to being, food critics are us and really judging you harshly on these things. And so someone walking out and not telling you what's happening, it's really on you, because you haven't stopped to just find out how was your experience. And so I think the first and foremost is training the same people that take care of people when they walk through the door to be looking for who's leaving me. And that could be a server, it could be a busser, it could be a cashier, it could be a host, saying who's walking out the door, and really look at them and not just yelling goodbye, but asking the most important questions. How was your experience? And not how was your food? Oh, was your food okay? Which the okay part kills me. Like if you're shooting for okay, you won't be in business for long. But you want to understand, open-ended question is how was the experience? And that opens it up to, was the service on point? Was the place clean? Was the food cooked properly? Did it, maybe you didn't enjoy the company you're with. Who cares? Whatever it is, it opens to a conversation, which is really what you want in the end on the way out. I want to have a conversation with you, because generally you probably won't tell me it wasn't great on the very first interaction. It was after we built a little rapport on the way out. You may tell me a little more about how your server was amazing, or really how the food was on point, or it was not on point, because we built a rapport.
And you can do that digitally too. If you don't have a formula to be able to grasp them with a person, maybe there's a reach out afterwards. If you've got a technique where you're able to communicate with them digitally. I'm a big believer in when you come into a place and when you leave a place, every staff that sees people coming or going, hello, welcome to. Thank you for coming today. We'll see you again soon, assuming that they're using language, assuming that they're coming back. I like to think of creative ways to bring people back, whether that's a free dessert gift or something like that. That's part of the goodbye that can be done. I love creative signage. When I walk into a place and I see an A-frame with the specials facing me, and then when I leave back out, we've had a pleasure serving you today on the backside. Little things like that I pick up on, and they impact and they go into people's brain. I'm going to talk 10 seconds about this, and we'll talk about it in another episode, Miguel. But the check delivery process is so broken in so many restaurants. That really needs to be refined, and think of how a guest wants that check, which is, I'd like the check brought to me. I'd like you to confirm with me that everything's right before leaving, and then asking if I want to give my credit card or not. This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trips, to me, maybe I'm a party of one, but it drives me crazy. So Miguel, I know we're close to our time on this one. Any last thoughts?
You know what? It's I guess one thing recap I'll say is think of, if you were the guest, how would you like to be welcomed? How would you like that interaction to happen? And if something wasn't right, how would that employee or that restaurant get it out of you? And so what are the kind of questions you need to ask? And I think whatever your answers come for those questions, make sure you go back to your processes, and that's what you got to go back and train.
Got to tweak. It's been a great episode. See you on number 13 coming up.